We're now going to talk about putting polycarbonate on this metal end wall. This is a 30-foot wide end wall. It's the wide open end wall design. So when the vents shipped, they shipped inside of the horizontal frames. So we took out these 3 4x8 butterfly vents, and we also took out the peak vent. So those will have to be installed after we put the polycarbonate in. When we're putting in the polycarbonate, we need to make sure that we leave gaps above where the butterfly vents close. Because of how these vents work, some of the polycarbonate on the vents actually overlaps the edges of the vents. So what we do is when we put our polycarbonate on, this overlaps on the top, we made sure to leave a gap on the top and also a gap all the way along the top of the 4x8 butterfly vents so it doesn't interfere with the polycarbonate that's already on top of the vents. With polycarbonate, I like to start on the inside and work my way out. And I start with the tall sheets. So the first sheet we put in was this piece right here and this piece right here on both sides of the vent. Polycarbonate has single H channel and it has double H channel. Single H channel is used for the edge of the polycarbonate and it only takes one side of the polycarbonate. It looks like a lowercase h. Double H channel is used for the polycarbonate seams and it looks like a capital H. It's got 2 little H's that are kind of put together so you can get a polycarbonate sheet in from both sides. So what we did was we put our polycarbonate in. Polycarbonate comes with a protective coating, so we made sure to keep track of which side was out. So as soon as we took the coating off, we always wrote on it which side was out. We wrote on it sometimes in multiple locations, because as we trimmed the polycarbonate, we needed to make sure that we kept track of which side was out, even on the pieces that were cut. After we knew which side the bottom was going to be, we put vent tape on it, or white porous tape. That allows water to drip out of the bottom of the polycarbonate without allowing bugs to get in. So we started with a single H channel. We butted it up to leave room for the overlap of the butterfly vents. We ran it all the way up to the top of the vent. This particular tunnel has a ridge vent in it. So what we did is we stopped it there knowing we were going to seam some plates above it. So we ran single channel up to the top and then we ended up putting double H channel above it. Then we cut this piece to fit. So to do that, we put our double H channel that was lined up with our vertical stud. We put that in, measured where it needed to be, and then cut this piece. I like to put the leading edge of the polycarbonate, the edge you're going to put in first, leave that as a factory edge, and then the edge that you're going to put on second, I like to put the double plastic attachment channel onto the polycarbonate before I put it up, and then put that up as an assembly. Once this was up, we used 1.5-inch screws to go through the double H channel. Every time we go through the polycarbonate, which is everywhere we have a stud behind it, we use an 1.5-inch screw with a neoprene washer. When we're putting these in, we're really careful that we don't suck that screw through the polycarbonate. Everywhere we have single H channel, we use the 1-inch self-tapping screw because that doesn't add a lot of thickness when you use the single H channel. So on the right side, where we attach that to the stud, we just use 1-inch screws. After this piece was in, we went ahead and measured where we wanted the next piece to go. In this case, we were able to do a full sheet without trimming it. We put marked which side was out, put our vent tape on the bottom, and then used double H channel on the side. All these sheets were run long. Then after we have them all in, what we do is we come back with a jigsaw and we trim the top of it, both the polycarbonate and the aluminum channels. So we start just by running the sheets tall, come back with a saw, and then trim it to fit. So after this piece, we had another piece, and we came over here to the edge. One thing that you can do when you have a situation where you got 2 different pieces butting together, where you don't have the ability to put a double H channel the whole way up. Like over here, it was easier just to have a single H channel that came all the way up to the edge of this piece, and to put another single H channel on the side of this piece. You can overlap those pieces, or in this case, we just butted them up together, making a nice joint there. After all that polycarbonate was in, again, we went ahead and trimmed everything, and then we came back and we put our flashing on. This is a flashing. It's about a 3-inch by 3-inch aluminum flashing, and when we put it on, we made sure to put a single plastic attachment channel on top of it, which will take our roof plastic. That trims the top of the polycarbonate nice. Before you put on that flashing, you need to put aluminum tape on the top edge of the polycarbonate. The aluminum tape stops water from getting in. So after we trim the whole top, put aluminum tape on everything, then we install the flashing and the single plastic attachment channel at the same time. On the outside, we screwed it in from the top, but on the outside, we also used 1.5-inch self-tapping screws with neoprene washers to trim the top off nicely. When we had a ridge vent, we had to make sure that we extended our pieces up so we could get our ridge vent installed properly. After everything was in, we came back, we found the center of our peak vent, put a double plastic attachment channel here, polycarbonate on both sides, In this scenario, we put a double H channel here, and then we put polycarbonate on both sides. We trim the top, the right, and the left with small pieces of single H channel. Because this has roll-up sides, one of the other things that we have to take into account is that since there are roll-up end walls, we need to make sure that we have plastic attachment channel on the bottom edge of this vertical stud. We cheat it as far low as we can. That way we make sure that we can still get our screws into the bottom edge of our polycarbonate. When we installed this single plastic attachment channel, it was really important that no screws, whether it's for the single plastic attachment channel or for the polycarbonate, there could be no screws in the way of where the retractable studs are going to go up and down. So there's a lot of details here. It's important to kind of think through that as you go, but that's how you put polycarbonate on the wide open end wall. So what's next? We'll install our plastic for our roll-up bottoms. We'll put our vents back in, and that will complete this end wall. We're continuing to work on a metal end wall for a 30-foot wide building. This style of end wall is our wide open end wall. So we put our entire end wall up when we were building our hoops. We had to do some things to finish some of the end wall pieces once the hoop was up. First thing that we did was we put this steel bar in behind this control box. It's a 2-inch steel stud with a telescoping end. Since it touches our sidewall hoop, we weren't able to put this in when we built the end wall on the ground. We made sure that this was in the same line as the rest of the steel studs, screwed it in to our seams, extended our telescoping end, and attached that to our sidewall hoop using this brace band. So now that this steel stud was in, that attaches the bottom of the end wall to the hoops. We did that on both sides. Right now we're going to talk about the vents themselves. So up top, this particular design has a butterfly vent. So we've got pivot bolts that are above center from the top of the butterfly vent that allow the weight of the vent for it to close. We put an eye bolt on the bottom facing in and an eye bolt on the top facing out. We're going to use those to attach our ropes and our rope hooks so that we can keep the butterfly vent open as we'd like it. You can just crack it a little bit, or you can go all the way open, or you even can go past 90 degrees open if you want the water to hit the vent and drain out. So we went ahead and we put in our peak vents. Then we put in our 4x8 butterfly vents that run from 4 feet basically up to 8 feet in the top of the structure. When we put these vents in, we also use pivot bolts, but the middle pivot bolts are shared between the two vents. So we have a 3/8 by 8-inch pivot bolt. So when we put that bolt in, we need to make sure to install it in such a way that it goes through both of the vents. On the two far edges, we're able to use a 3/8 by 5-inch pivot bolt, just like what we use on the top for the peak vent. Once all those vents were installed, we made sure that all of our bolts that we go through also lined up. If any of the bolts don't line up, you can just go ahead and bore the holes out a little bit to make sure it's easy to put the bolts in and out. For the hardware, for the 4x8 butterfly vents, we've got our eye bolts on the top. We have an eye bolt on the bottom facing in. We've got a rope cleat on the outside, and we've got a rope cleat on the inside. That allows us to use our rope to keep these vents open and closed as need be. Another important thing with these vents, as with the peak vent, is in any severe weather, you're going to want to bolt the vents closed. You're probably also going to want to bolt them closed and tape all the gaps when you winterize the structure. So we have all of our bolt holes, make sure everything fits, and it's ready to go. We're going to move over to the other side, and we can talk about how to install the roll-up bottoms for the wide open end wall. We're going to talk about how to strap the bottom of the retractable legs to our T-posts. The T-posts are driven in the ground, they're driven in as far as they can so we can still pull them out with a T-post puller. The middle studs are attached slightly differently than the outer studs. What we did is we put a strap on the middle of the stud, and then on the outer studs there's a plastic attachment channel on the outside that holds this pocket in place. So we have to strap that plastic attachment channel at the top and at the bottom. So the strap on the top and the bottom goes all the way around the plastic attachment channel, and the strap in the middle goes in between the retractable stud and the plastic attachment channel. We'll put 2 straps on the inner studs, and that shows how we attach the bottom of the retractable studs to the end wall. While we're on the inside, I can also show you up here how we're attaching our peak vent hardware to our vertical studs. We made sure that these rope cleats were installed above the pivot bolts so that we didn't hit anything with the retractable studs. We've got a rope cleat here and a rope that goes up to our eye bolt on the inside of the peak vent. That allows us to put the peak vent where we need it. So now we're going to go to the outside. Since it's a wide open end wall design, we've got a sidewall door. So we're going to go through the sidewall door. Latch it closed. Alright, from the outside you can see how the roll-up bottoms work for the end wall. This is the single plastic attachment channel that's temporarily strapped to the retractable stud. This is removed when the building is moved. Over here we have another one, and we use the top piece so we can have a pocket for our roll-up end wall. We put our aluminum roll bar together, and then on the far end we have a hand crank. There's also a plastic attachment channel everywhere on the top, so you can see that this now has a roll-up bottom. All we have left on this end wall is to put in our 3 4x8 peak vents, or 4x8 butterfly vents, and this end wall is complete.